I remember being in a hotel and everything about the place was perfect. The architecture, the service, the thread count, the rooms, the whole experience. But I remember very distinctly remembering that I could be anywhere. And that's kind of the raison d'etre of Stanton House Inn. If you don't know who I am, my name is Colin Pearson. I'm a fourth generation innkeeper at Stanton House Inn in Greenwich, Connecticut. And here's the alternative we've been building here at Stanton House Inn over the past 7 or so years that I've been in charge. Around here, we call our style of hosting elegantly charming. And a lot of guests are like, what the heck is that? So I'm here to explain that more to you. It's not about luxury for us. It's more about calm, quiet, and staying power, kind of enjoying the history of where you are, the stories, all of that stuff, rolled into one kind of elegantly charming space. When I first took over the inn, I didn't set out to redefine luxury or anything like that. In fact, I actually went through the whole website as one of the first things I did and deleted every time the word luxury was on our website. And at the time, it was more that I didn't think of us as luxury. We didn't have all the marble everything stuff, the beautiful polished bathrooms and whatever. So I didn't want to mislead people. But what I think we were most definably so was New England. We were a New England bed and breakfast. And that was kind of more our goal, was not to become the best luxury hotel or anything like that, but to become the best version of ourselves, which in my opinion is a New England bed and breakfast. An inn that is in a very historic New England home in Connecticut. That's kind of how we started off. We kind of backed our way into what our definable experience is here at Stanton House Inn. I came up with the term elegantly charming hosting years ago. I want to say 2020, something like that. And we're in 2026 now. And I didn't quite know what that was at the time, and we kind of just figured it out as we went along, as most small businesses do, quite frankly. But I would say now it is a very definable experience and kind of what guests expect when they come to stay with us and what they expect every time they come to stay with us. We have a lot of return guests, and that is warmth, coziness, and all in a structure, an experience that is very elegant and very tied to our location, which is Greenwich, Connecticut. So I like to kind of describe us as the experience of the house itself is very old money. This house has hosted multiple families of very wealthy people, unfortunately not my own, since the mid-1800s or so. The house really speaks to that. We have gorgeous paneling, very historic elements. I've had experts in the industry tell me in the past that around now, the process of taking over a historic home like this is to strip everything back to the studs of the house and then rebuild and just recreate the historic elements that are lost in the process of revamping in order to, do things like putting in HVAC systems and, all the gold-plated everything. I don't even know what they do in these houses, but I don't stay in them. But here we put a lot of effort into retaining what historical elements there are to this house because it is so important and it's such an important part of the story and the experience of staying here. So you walk around our public areas and you touch the molding and you touch the walls, like that is plaster. That is horsehair plaster that has been there for at least 100 years at this point. And we do what we can to retain it, save it, preserve it so that the next generation can appreciate it as well. In addition to that, we also want the feel to be not just that you're staying in somebody's fancy house, but you're staying in what I like to call an eccentric relative or friend's house, because quite frankly, I and my family, we're pretty quirky. And we want you to know that and appreciate that, that we've been here for years and the house has definitely kind of absorbed some of our personality, our quirks. The house itself is quite quirky actually, but in that regard, our hosts are not trained the way that they are at luxury hotels. Like, we don't force polished perfection, professionalism, anything like that. In fact, we more focus on enthusiasm, a positive attitude, and people who enjoy hosting people in their personal life. Generally speaking, if that's something you enjoy doing, you're going to enjoy doing it and getting paid to do it, frankly. So that's really something that we prioritize with people. We know and can train all of the elements of hospitality. It's really the attitude that we feel very strongly that we cannot train into people. We actually had a guest very recently who wrote a review, and in their review about us, they commented on the fact that they haven't been here for years, but it was the stay with us was such a memorable part of their tour of New England and the Northeast, that they finally felt like they had to say something, and they had to say something positive about their experience with us, which was really super nice, and really encouraging for me and the rest of my team to read. Basically, they said that of the various New England inns and Northeast places that they stayed at, we were still one of the most memorable. And they remember so well just the elegance of the house, the charm of the team. They remember how just kind of enveloping and cozy our rooms are, and just how well taken care of they felt while they were here. And that is really what we shoot for. So it was really awesome to hear that, honestly. So much of our business is tied to repeat guests and guests who come back on a regular basis, and that we get to know over time. And that really is such an important part of the experience for us as well as guests. So we will get guests who, I go through Who Books pretty much daily, and I and members of the team will see that a specific guest is booked and that they're coming back on a certain date, and we will actually reach out to them and just say how excited we are to have them come back. And obviously, when you are staying with us on a regular basis, you really do learn about people, and you learn what they like and what they don't like, and what they want to experience while they're exploring Greenwich, for example, and what they want to experience here. And so it really is like hosting somebody in your own home, because you get to know people way better than kind of the more transient experience of a lot of other hotels. It really is an experience that you are not a number here. You are a person, and we get you. The hospitality industry has a major burnout problem. And I felt it myself when I first took this business over. When I first started working here again, I focused on kind of doing what was expected of somebody who works in hospitality. You're on 24/7, you're constantly available, present, doing everything you can to ensure the best experience for every guest. And that's obviously important, but at the same time, I understand why so many people left the hospitality industry at the start of this decade. It wears you down. And I remember actually, well before I took over Stanton House Inn, talking to another very experienced innkeeper who told me that on average, bed and breakfast owners last an average of 7 years. Which, by the way, I am entering my 7th year running Stanton House Inn. And that warning, which is what I saw it as, has stuck with me ever since. I am constantly worried about my own burnout, and that has fed into a concern of ensuring that doesn't happen to my team either. I know that the connection that guests feel with both me and my team is so important. I mean, that's our raison d'etre as a business is connection. And so to lose people simply because they can't continue on because they've given so much to the business is demoralizing and really not productive for us as a business long term. If you spend several years developing a connection with a member of our team and appreciating them specifically and looking forward to seeing them when you come to Stanton House Inn, if they move on because they just are no longer interested in working in hospitality, for example, that's a huge hit. And so it's so important to me to kind of maintain a different perspective on Stanton House Inn and the house itself. So personally, I see myself a steward of the house rather than the owner. That's partly because, as I've alluded to before, I'm the fourth generation running this. So, and my goal is to keep the business going until the fifth generation, whoever that is, decides that they want to take on this mantle and take on the challenge of carrying this business on another generation. And so from that regard, I see myself as a caretaker, a steward, if you will, of Stanton House Inn, not an owner. And in that regard, everybody in the next generation of my family is very young. So I have to be able to keep going and keep this running until somebody's actually willing to take this on. And I also don't want to hand over a raging dumpster fire. That's probably not what you wanted to hear, but it's true. Most people, when they run a one-person business or something like that, they don't think about how difficult it would be for somebody else to take over after the fact. So we do put a lot of effort into kind of the back-end systems and processes of this business because we want it to be easy to manage. We don't want a guest to come to a member of our team and have an issue that they need help with, and that team member is already flustered and exhausted because they've been dealing with other issues that could have been prevented by better systems and processes. With that being said, some of the boundaries that we've kind of established over the years include things that used to just be things that we just didn't do, but they've kind of become lines in the sand for us. For example, we don't have a 24-hour front desk. We don't need a 24-hour front desk. Most of our guests are perfectly fine just enjoying a very quiet evening to themselves and pretending they live here at Stanton House Inn. And to some people, that's not for them, and that's totally fine. We have 21 rooms. We don't need everyone to stay here and love it and everything. And there are lots of other great hotels, even in Greenwich, Connecticut, that are fantastic with 24-hour front desks, for example. But for us as a team, I have a rule from a burnout perspective of I don't want them to do a job that I'm not comfortable doing myself. Because let's face it, if somebody is working the overnight shift and they call out, somebody else has to fill that role at one point or another. And it is so important to me to maintain work-life balance. That is something that I learned from a previous experience. I used to work at a marketing agency before I worked here at Stanton House Inn. And there was always this perennial promise of, oh, you know, it's going to slow down, it's going to slow down, it's going to slow down. It never did. It was constant for, I'd say at 3 years I burned out. At 4 years I finally left because, you know, you're in your 20s, you don't really know what you're doing. But here, I'm older, more mature. I understand how important it is to have a break between your personal life and your work life. So another thing that we've kind of set as a boundary is we close for several weeks every winter. We close shortly before Christmas Eve or so, and we reopen in mid-January. And that is one of the things that drew me back to Stanton House Inn, to be frank, was the fact that there was always this definable period where we weren't going to have to work. We weren't going to have to worry about what was going on at the inn or anything like that. We could just focus on reconnecting with our friends and family, enjoying the holidays, for example, and then just relaxing the same way our guests do when we're here, when we're open and taking care of them. I've had lots of people tell me how odd that is for a business in the hospitality industry. Yeah, I'm odd, and so is Stanton House Inn to some degree, and that's totally fine. Because when we come, I know this from experience of the 7 years I've been here, when we come back from break, we are refreshed, we're renewed, and we are ready to tackle the new year. And I'm not sure that's something you typically see in other businesses in the hospitality industry. Another way that we kind of tackle our these boundaries that we've set for ourselves is to be proactive as possible. One of the best definitions of luxury that I've ever seen is that you get what you want when you want before you want it. And for us, that requires a bit more planning than a place with a 24-hour front desk, for example. So as an example, one of the first things that we learned was that people like towels. And I know that's a very obvious statement, but we would more often than not have people check in and ask for extra towels. So instead of having to attend to that on a regular basis when the front desk was closed, instead we just started leaving extra towels in rooms. And so in that regard, Sorry to the people that had to request towels from us, but now we are much more proactive about that, and we get way fewer requests for towels, and we do it in a way that people appreciate and feel like we've thought of them, because we have, in one way or another. Another one that I've thought of is a way that we kind of accommodate our boundaries is we always have someone on call, and they are compensated for that. We obviously, work-life balance is very important, but if you need something, you need something. So there is always someone on call, but it's a definable person, and it's a set period in which they're responsible, and then the rest of the time they're free to trust the rest of the team to take care of guests on other days. And our locks on our doors, we over the past few years have switched from a physical key to electric locks and electronic locks, and the codes for those room doors are tied to a guest's phone number, so they don't forget it, and we no longer have guests who lose their keys and desperately need us to come back at 2 in the morning to let them into their room, which is fair. You got to get into your room. So it's just kind of streamlined things for us, both for the guests and for our team. All that is to say, the whole purpose of this is to maintain that standard that we've created ourselves, which is an elegantly charming place to stay here in Greenwich, Connecticut, and to be one of the best, if not the best, New England bed and breakfasts that you've ever experienced. If guests leave and at the end of their stay and tell us that they just can't wait to come back, I mean, honestly, that's the whole reason for existence. So that's more than enough for us.